It was February 10th, 2026 at 2:47 a.m. when a question I'd been wrestling with for 3 tormented weeks drove me to a hidden desert oasis 40 miles outside of Tucson, and there, surrounded by ancient palm trees that swayed like worshippers in the pre-dawn darkness, and a reflecting pool so still it mirrored the cosmos itself, Jesus appeared beside me on a weathered limestone outcropping and spoke words that shattered everything I thought I understood about prayer. Jonathan, I don't ignore prayers, I ignore the person praying them. Not everyone who sees this message is meant to see it. Some will scroll past, some will ignore it. But you've been marked. I need you to do something right now before we go any further. I need you to type your prayer request in the comments below. I don't care how impossible it seems. I don't care how long you've been praying it. I don't care if you've given up hope. Type it. Because what I'm about to share with you over these next few nights, what Jesus revealed to me in that desert oasis, is going to change everything you think you know about why some prayers seem to fall on deaf ears while others are answered before the words even leave your lips. And if you're a true believer, if you're someone who wants to go deeper than the shallow Christianity that's being preached in most churches today, hit that subscribe button right now. This channel isn't for everyone. It's for the marked ones, the chosen ones, the ones who are hungry for truth even when it costs them everything they thought they knew. For those of you just finding this channel, my name is Jonathan Roumie. You might know me as the actor who portrays Jesus in The Chosen, the largest crowdfunded media project in history. But I'm not here tonight as an actor. I'm here as a broken man who encountered the living Christ in the most unexpected place, at the most unexpected time, and received an answer to a question that's been tormenting believers since the beginning of time. Let me take you back to that night, to that moment, to that place. The desert in February is nothing like people imagine. At 2:47 in the morning, it's not hot, it's cold, bitterly cold. I was wearing a heavy jacket, jeans, and boots, and I was still shivering as I made my way down the rocky path toward the oasis I'd discovered 3 days earlier while location scouting. The temperature had dropped to maybe 40 degrees, and every breath I exhaled created small clouds of vapor that disappeared into the darkness, like prayers I wasn't sure anyone was hearing. I'd been unable to sleep for weeks, literally weeks, because I'd been praying, desperately praying, for something specific in my life, and the silence from heaven had become deafening. And it wasn't just my prayers. I'd been reading your comments, thousands of them, from people crying out to God for healing, for provision, for reconciliation, for breakthrough, and hearing nothing back. Radio silence. And the question that had been building in my chest like a scream finally erupted. God, why? Why do you ignore some prayers? The oasis appeared before me like something from another world. 7 towering date palms, their fronds rustling in the cold desert wind, surrounded a natural spring-fed pool about 30 feet across. The water was so perfectly still that it reflected every star in the vast Arizona sky, thousands of them, millions of them, stretching from horizon to horizon in a display of glory that made me feel simultaneously insignificant and deeply seen. The moon was 3 days past full, hanging low in the western sky, painting everything in silver and shadow. The limestone rocks surrounding the pool were ancient, worn smooth by centuries of wind and water, and they glowed almost white in the moonlight. I could smell the water, fresh and clean, mixed with the dusty sage scent of the desert and something else, something sweet I couldn't identify. Night-blooming jasmine, maybe, or desert willow. I sat down on the largest outcropping, my feet dangling about 3 feet above the water's surface. The rock was cold through my jeans, and I pulled my jacket tighter around me. The only sounds were the wind in the palms, a dry, rattling whisper, and the occasional call of a night bird I couldn't identify. No traffic, no human voices, no distractions. Just me and the question that was eating me alive. Why? I said out loud, my voice sounding strange and small in that vast space. Why do you ignore prayers? Why do some people pray for healing and get it, while others pray for decades and die still waiting? Why do some people pray for provision and find money in their mailbox, while others pray and lose everything? Why do some prayers seem to move mountains while others don't seem to move you at all? The wind picked up suddenly, and the palm fronds clattered above me like applause. The surface of the pool rippled, distorting the reflection of the stars. And then I felt it, that presence, that unmistakable, undeniable presence that I'd felt before while filming The Chosen, during those moments when portraying Jesus stopped being acting and started being something else, something more. He was sitting beside me. I didn't see him appear. He was just there, as if he'd always been there, sitting on the same limestone outcropping, his feet also dangling above the water. He was wearing simple clothes, a dark robe, maybe brown or deep gray. It was hard to tell in the moonlight. His hair moved in the wind. His face was turned toward the pool, toward the reflection of the stars, and even in profile, I recognized him. Not from the show, from somewhere deeper, from somewhere in my spirit that had known him before I was born. "Jonathan," he said, and his voice was like the wind and the water and the stars all speaking at once, gentle but powerful, intimate but authoritative. "You asked why I ignore prayers." I couldn't speak. My throat had closed up completely. I could only nod. He turned to look at me then, and his eyes, God, his eyes, they were filled with something I didn't expect. Not anger, not disappointment, grief, deep ancient grief that seemed to carry the weight of every unanswered prayer in human history. "I don't ignore prayers, Jonathan. I ignore the person praying them." The words hit me like a physical blow. I actually recoiled, nearly losing my balance on the rock. "What?" I managed to whisper. "What does that mean?" He gestured toward the pool. "Look at the water. What do you see?" I looked. Stars. The reflection of stars. "Look closer." I leaned forward, studying the surface, and then I saw it, my own reflection, dark and indistinct, superimposed over the stars. I see it myself and the stars. Myself and the... "When someone comes to me in prayer," Jesus said, his voice carrying across the water, "I see two things. I see their words, their requests, their needs, their desires, like stars reflected on water, beautiful, genuine, real, but I also see them, the person praying, and sometimes, Jonathan, the person praying is blocking their own prayers." "I don't understand," I said, and I was crying now, tears cold on my cheeks in the desert wind. He stood up then, and the moment he did, the wind stopped completely. The palm fronds went silent. The water became impossibly still. Even the night bird stopped calling. It was as if all of creation was holding its breath. "Let me show you," he said. He touched the surface of the water with one finger, and the pool transformed. It was no longer reflecting stars. It was showing me something else. A vision, a window into somewhere else. I saw a woman, middle-aged, kneeling beside her bed in a small apartment. She was praying desperately, tears streaming down her face. "Please, God," she was saying, "please heal my daughter. Please, I'm begging you. I'll do anything. Just heal her. Please." The vision zoomed out, and I could see into her heart somehow, like looking through clear water to the bottom of a stream. And there, beneath the desperate prayer, beneath the genuine love for her daughter, I saw something else. Bitterness. A thick, black root of bitterness toward her ex-husband. Unforgiveness that had calcified over years into something hard and toxic. "She's been praying this prayer for 6 months," Jesus said quietly beside me. "Every night. Sometimes multiple times a day, and I hear every word, every tear, every desperate plea." "Then why don't you answer?" I asked, my voice breaking. "I am answering," he said. "I've been answering since the first night she prayed. I've been saying, forgive him, forgive your ex-husband, let go of the bitterness, then watch what I'll do for your daughter." But she doesn't want to hear that answer. She wants healing without forgiveness, breakthrough without obedience, miracles without surrender. The vision changed. Now I saw a man, young, maybe 30, praying in his car in a parking lot. "God, I need this job. Please, I need you to open this door. I've been faithful. I've been tithing. I've been serving. Please give me this job." Again, the vision zoomed into his heart, and I saw it. Pride. Massive, towering pride. He didn't want the job because he needed provision. He wanted it because it would prove to his father that he wasn't a failure. He wanted it because it would make him look successful on social media. He wanted it because it would validate his worth in his own eyes. "He's been praying this prayer for 3 weeks," Jesus said, "and I hear him. But I can't give him this job, Jonathan, because if I do, it will feed the very thing that's destroying him. His pride will grow. His dependence on me will shrink. He'll credit his own faithfulness instead of my grace. And 5 years from now, he'll be successful and miserable and so far from me, he won't even remember what my voice sounds like." I was shaking now, and not from the cold. "So you're saying you ignore prayers when the person praying has sin in their life?" "No," he said firmly, and there was almost frustration in his voice. I'm saying I ignore prayers when the person praying is ignoring me. There's a difference, Jonathan, a massive difference. The wind picked up again, warmer now, carrying that sweet scent I'd noticed earlier. The palm fronds began to sway and the water rippled, distorting the visions on its surface. Every believer has sin, Jesus continued. Every single one. If I only answered prayers from perfect people, I'd never answer any prayers. But there's a difference between struggling with sin and nursing it, between falling and refusing to get up, between weakness and willful rebellion. He sat back down beside me, close enough that I could feel warmth radiating from him, cutting through the cold desert air. The woman praying for her daughter's healing. I would heal that child in an instant, in a heartbeat. I want to heal her even more than the mother wants it. But I also love the mother too much to give her what she's asking for, while she's holding on to something that's poisoning her soul. If I healed the daughter without the mother dealing with her unforgiveness, I'd be enabling her spiritual death. I'd be trading temporary physical healing for eternal spiritual sickness. And the man praying for the job? I asked. I have something better for him, something that will require him to depend on me instead of himself, something that will break his pride and build his character, but he can't see it because he's so focused on what he wants that he can't hear what I'm saying. The visions in the water faded, and once again it reflected only stars and moonlight and my own tear-stained face. Jonathan, Jesus said, and his hand was on my shoulder now, warm and solid and real. I don't ignore prayers. I ignore the person praying when they're ignoring what I've already told them to do, when they're holding on to something I've told them to release, when they're running from something I've told them to face, when they're asking for something that would harm them instead of help them. I thought about my own prayer, the one I'd been praying for weeks, the one that had driven me out into this desert in the middle of the night. And suddenly, I didn't want to think about it, because I knew that if I looked honestly at my own heart, I'd see something there too, something I was holding on to, something I was refusing to surrender. Most believers, Jesus continued, treat prayer like a vending machine. They put in their coins, their faithfulness, their service, their good behavior, and they expect me to dispense what they've requested. And when I don't, they accuse me of being deaf or distant or uncaring. But Jonathan, I'm not a vending machine. I'm a father. And sometimes the most loving thing a father can do is say no, or wait, or redirect. A shooting star streaked across the sky, reflected perfectly in the still water of the pool. It was there and gone in less than a second, leaving only the memory of light. Tomorrow night, Jesus said, standing up again. Come back here tomorrow night. Same time. There's more you need to understand. More I need to show you. Wait, I said desperately, reaching out. Don't go. I have so many questions. I need to know. Tomorrow night, he repeated. And then he was gone. Not walking away. Not fading. Just gone. As if he'd never been there at all. Except I could still feel the warmth where his hand had been on my shoulder. I could still smell something in the air that hadn't been there before, like bread baking, or wine, or incense. Something holy. I sat there on that limestone outcropping for another hour, maybe longer, watching the stars reflected in the water and thinking about what he'd said, about prayers being ignored not because God doesn't hear them, but because the person praying is ignoring what God has already said. And I thought about you, about everyone watching this, about the thousands of prayer requests that would be typed in the comments below this video, about all the desperate, genuine, heartfelt prayers that seem to go unanswered. What if Jesus is right? What if he's not ignoring your prayers at all? What if he's been answering them all along, but you've been ignoring his answer because it's not the answer you wanted? What if he's been saying forgive first, and you've been saying heal first? What if he's been saying let go, and you've been saying give me more? What if he's been saying trust me, and you've been saying show me, listen to me? I'm going to be back here tomorrow night, same place, same time. And Jesus promised he'd be here too. He promised he'd show me more, and I'm going to share every word, every vision, every revelation with you. But right now, before you click away, I need you to do something. I need you to get honest with God, not about what you want from him, about what he's already asked from you. What has he been whispering to your spirit that you've been ignoring? What has he been asking you to surrender that you've been clutching tighter? What has he been telling you to do that you've been putting off? Because here's what I learned tonight in that desert oasis under those stars, beside that reflecting pool. God is not deaf to your prayers, but you might be deaf to his answers. Tomorrow night, I'll share what happened next. what Jesus showed me about the scope of this problem, about how many believers are crying out to a God who's been answering them all along, if only they had ears to hear. Type, "I'm listening" in the comments if you're ready to hear what God has really been saying to you, and I'll see you tomorrow night. I barely slept that day. How could I? Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that reflecting pool, those stars, his face. I kept hearing his words echoing in my mind. I don't ignore prayers. I ignore the person praying them. By the time 2:47 a.m. rolled around on February 11th, I was already parked at the trailhead, my hands shaking as I grabbed my flashlight and started the 40-minute hike back to the oasis. The temperature had dropped even further, maybe 35 degrees, and the wind was stronger tonight, coming from the north in gusts that made the desert shrubs rattle like bones. My flashlight beam cut through the darkness, illuminating the narrow path between towering saguaro cacti that stood like silent sentinels, their arms raised toward heaven in permanent prayer. The moon was lower tonight, a thick crescent that looked like a smile or a scythe, depending on how you looked at it. I could hear the oasis before I saw it, the wind in those 7 palm trees creating a sound like rushing water, like whispered conversations, like 1,000 voices all speaking at once. And then I rounded the final bend in the path, and there it was, and I stopped dead in my tracks. The pool was glowing. I don't mean reflecting moonlight, I mean glowing. Emanating light from within, a soft blue-green luminescence that I'd never seen before, that shouldn't have been possible. It lit up the surrounding rocks, cast dancing shadows on the palm trunks, made the whole oasis look like something from another world. Bioluminescent algae, maybe? Some kind of natural phenomenon I didn't understand. But then I saw him standing at the water's edge, and I knew the light wasn't coming from the water. It was coming from him. Jesus was facing away from me, looking out across the pool, and I don't know how to describe this. He was solid and real, wearing the same dark robe from the night before, but there was light emanating from him, seeping through the fabric, glowing beneath his skin like he'd swallowed the sun, not blinding, not harsh, but undeniable, unmistakable. "Jonathan," he said without turning around, "you came back." "Of course I came back," I said, my voice hoarse. I made my way down to the water's edge, my boots crunching on the sandy soil. "You told me to, and I need to understand. I need to know more." He turned to face me then, and his eyes were different tonight, still filled with that deep grief, but also something else. Determination, urgency, like a surgeon about to perform a necessary but painful operation. "Last night I showed you 2 people," he said, 2 prayers, 2 hearts that were blocking their own breakthroughs. "Tonight I need to show you the scope of this, the magnitude, because Jonathan, this isn't about 2 people. This is about millions, millions of my children crying out to me while simultaneously refusing to hear me." He gestured toward the pool, and the glowing water began to ripple despite the fact that there was no wind touching its surface. The ripples formed patterns, concentric circles spreading out from the center, and in each circle I began to see images, faces, scenes, lives. "Come closer," he said. "Look." I knelt at the water's edge, and the cold from the rocks seeped through my jeans immediately, but I didn't care. I was staring into the pool, and what I saw there made my chest tighten with a grief that wasn't my own. The first circle showed a church, a large church, maybe 2,000 people in the congregation. They were in a prayer meeting, hands raised, voices lifted, crying out for revival. "Send your spirit, Lord, pour out your power. We're desperate for you. We're hungry for you." And then the vision zoomed out, and I could see into the hearts of the congregation. Not all of them, but many. And what I saw there made me want to weep. Gossip. Thick, poisonous gossip spreading through the congregation like cancer. People praying for revival on Sunday while tearing each other apart with their words on Monday. Elders asking God to move while harboring resentment toward the pastor. Worship leaders crying out for God's presence while living double lives. Intercessors begging for breakthrough while refusing to reconcile with their own family members. "They've been praying for revival for 3 years," Jesus said quietly beside me. 3 years of prayer meetings, 3 years of fasting, 3 years of crying out, and I've been answering them the entire time. I've been saying, stop destroying each other, stop the gossip, stop the division, humble yourselves, forgive each other, then watch what I'll do. But they don't want to hear that. They want revival without repentance. They want my power without my purity. They want the fire without the refining. The image shifted. Now I saw a man in his late 50s praying in his home office. Successful businessman from the looks of it, expensive furniture, diplomas on the wall. He was on his knees, Bible open in front of him, tears streaming down his face. God, why won't you use me? I have so much to offer. I have resources, connections, influence. I'm ready to serve you. I'm ready to do great things for your kingdom. Why won't you open doors? Why won't you give me a platform? The vision zoomed into his heart, and I saw it immediately. His bank accounts, his financial records. He was worth millions, but he was giving God less than 1%. He was spending more on his car payment than on the kingdom. He was investing in his retirement while ignoring the poor. He was asking God to use his resources while keeping those resources locked away for himself. He's been praying this prayer for 5 years, Jesus said, and I've been answering him for 5 years. I've been saying, open your hands, release what you're holding, give generously, trust me with your wealth, then watch what I'll do with your influence. But he wants to be used without being surrendered. He wants to serve me while serving money. He wants to build my kingdom while building his own empire. I was crying now, tears dripping into the glowing water, creating tiny ripples that distorted the visions. How many? I asked. How many people are doing this? Jesus was quiet for a long moment. The wind picked up, colder now, and I could smell rain in the air, even though the sky was still clear. Storm coming. Maybe not tonight, but soon. Most of them, he finally said, and his voice was so heavy with sorrow that it felt like a physical weight pressing down on my chest. Most of my children are praying prayers that I've already answered. They're just not willing to hear the answer. He knelt beside me at the water's edge, and when he did, the glow from the pool intensified, casting our shadows long and dark across the desert floor behind us. Let me show you something else, he said. Let me show you what happens when someone actually listens. The water shifted again, and now I saw a young woman, maybe 25, sitting in a tiny apartment. She was praying, but her prayer was different. God, I don't understand why you're asking me to do this. It doesn't make sense. It's going to cost me everything. But, okay, I trust you. I'll do it. What is he asking her to do? I whispered. I'm asking her to quit her job and move across the country to care for her aging grandmother, Jesus said. She'll lose her career momentum. She'll lose her social circle. She'll lose her independence. By the world's standards, it's a terrible decision. But watch. The vision fast-forwarded, and I saw the young woman in a different apartment, smaller, simpler. She was caring for an elderly woman, helping her eat, reading to her, praying with her. And there was something in the young woman's face that hadn't been there before. Peace. Deep, unshakable peace. And joy. Real joy. Not the fake happiness she'd been performing in her old life. In 6 months, Jesus said, her grandmother will pass away peacefully, having reconciled with me in her final days because of this young woman's obedience. And in 8 months, this young woman will meet her future husband, a man I've been preparing for her since before she was born, at her grandmother's church. And in 2 years, they'll start a ministry together that will impact thousands of lives. But none of that happens if she ignores what I'm asking her to do right now. She listened, I said. She listened, he confirmed. And because she listened, because she obeyed even when it didn't make sense, I can give her everything I've been preparing for her. The prayers she's been praying for years, for purpose, for a godly husband, for meaningful work, I can answer all of them, because she's not blocking her own breakthrough. The wind was really picking up now, and the palm fronds were thrashing overhead, creating a sound like applause or warfare. I couldn't tell which. The temperature was dropping further, and I could see my breath in the glow from the pool. Jonathan, Jesus said, turning to look at me directly, do you understand what I'm showing you? Do you see the pattern? I think so, I said. You're saying that most unanswered prayers aren't unanswered at all. They're just conditional. You're waiting for us to do something first. Not just something, he said, standing up. The specific thing I've already told each person to do, the thing they're avoiding, the thing they're afraid of, the thing that requires them to trust me more than their own understanding. He began walking around the perimeter of the pool, and I stood up and followed him, my legs stiff from kneeling on the cold rocks. The glowing water continued to show images, dozens of them now, hundreds, flashing by faster than I could fully process. A woman praying for her marriage to be healed while refusing to stop her emotional affair with a coworker. A man praying for financial breakthrough while refusing to get honest about his gambling addiction. a teenager praying for direction while refusing to surrender her relationship with a boyfriend who's pulling her away from God, a pastor praying for church growth while refusing to address the toxic leadership culture he's created, a mother praying for her prodigal son to return while refusing to acknowledge her own role in driving him away. On and on and on, prayer after prayer after prayer, all genuine, all desperate, all seemingly unanswered. But every single one had the same pattern. God had already responded, and the person praying was ignoring his response. This is why, Jesus said, stopping on the far side of the pool, so many believers feel like I'm distant, like I don't hear them, like I don't care, because they're asking me to move in their circumstances while refusing to let me move in their hearts. A crack of thunder rolled across the desert, even though there were still no clouds visible in the sky. The storm was coming, but it was still far off. The air smelled like ozone and rain and something else, something like incense or myrrh. But here's what breaks my heart, Jesus continued, and now there were tears on his face, glowing like liquid light as they ran down his cheeks. Here's what grieves me more than anything else. It's not that they're ignoring me, it's that they're missing out on what I have for them. He gestured toward the pool again, and the images changed. Now I saw alternate timelines, possible futures, roads not taken. The woman praying for her daughter's healing. I saw what would happen if she forgave her ex-husband. Not only would her daughter be healed, but she would be healed. The bitterness that was eating her alive would be gone. She'd be free. And 5 years down the road, she'd be leading a ministry for divorced women, helping hundreds of others find the same freedom. The man praying for the job, I saw what would happen if he surrendered his pride. He wouldn't get the job he was asking for, but he'd get something better, a position that paid less but fulfilled him more. And through the humility he'd learn in that season, he'd become the kind of leader who actually changes lives instead of just building resumes. The church praying for revival, I saw what would happen if they actually dealt with their sin, not just revival, transformation. The entire community around them would be impacted, marriages healed, addictions broken, lives transformed. The church would become what it was always meant to be, a hospital for sinners, not a museum for saints. This is what they're missing, Jesus said, his voice thick with emotion. This is what they're trading for their stubbornness, their pride, their unwillingness to surrender, not just answered prayers, but transformation, purpose, the abundant life I came to give them. I was sobbing now, and I wasn't even sure why. Maybe because I was seeing myself in every one of these stories, maybe because I was realizing how many times I'd done the exact same thing, prayed desperately while ignoring what God was clearly asking me to do. There's a prayer you've been praying, Jesus said, and suddenly he was right beside me again, though I hadn't seen him move. For weeks now, you've been asking me for something specific, and you came out here to this desert because you thought I was ignoring you. My throat closed up. I couldn't speak. But I'm not ignoring you, Jonathan. I've been answering you every single day. I've been speaking to you in your quiet times. I've been whispering to you through scripture. I've been showing you through circumstances. But you haven't wanted to hear what I'm saying because what I'm asking you to do terrifies you. He was right. God help me. He was right. I knew exactly what he was talking about. There was something he'd been asking me to surrender, something I'd been holding on to with white knuckles, something I'd been telling myself I could keep while still following him fully. Tomorrow night, Jesus said, come back tomorrow night, same time, and come ready to see the consequences. Come ready to see what happens when people continue to ignore me, when they continue to pray prayers while refusing to hear my answers. Because, Jonathan, there's a deadline. There's always a deadline, and some people are running out of time. The wind suddenly stopped completely. The palm fronds went silent. The glowing water became perfectly still, and in that stillness I heard something that made my blood run cold. Weeping, distant weeping, like thousands of voices crying out in regret, in loss, in the agony of missed opportunities and wasted years. What is that? I whispered. That, Jesus said, is the sound of people who ran out of time, who spent their lives praying prayers while ignoring my answers, who stood before me and realized too late that I'd been speaking to them all along. They just weren't listening. And then he was gone again. The glow faded from the water. The weeping stopped. I was alone in the darkness with only my flashlight and the distant stars and the cold desert wind that had started up again, stronger than before. I sat there for a long time, shivering, thinking about what I'd seen, about all those prayers, all those people, all those missed opportunities, and I thought about my own prayer, the one I'd been praying for weeks, and the answer God had been giving me that I'd been refusing to hear. And I thought about you, about everyone watching this, about your prayers, about what God might be asking you to do that you've been ignoring. Here's what I need you to understand. God is not playing games with you. He's not being cryptic or mysterious or difficult. When you pray, He hears you, every word, every tear, every desperate plea, and He answers. He always answers. But sometimes His answer is, not until you deal with this first. Sometimes His answer is, not until you surrender that. Sometimes His answer is, not until you forgive them. Sometimes His answer is, not until you let go. And if you keep praying the same prayer while ignoring His answer, you're not demonstrating faith. You're demonstrating stubbornness, and stubbornness doesn't move God. It just delays your breakthrough. I'm going back tomorrow night, one more time. And Jesus promised to show me the rest, the consequences, the warnings, the final pieces of this revelation, and I'm going to share every bit of it with you. But right now, I need you to get quiet before God. Turn off this video if you need to. Get alone, get honest, and ask Him, what have you been asking me to do that I've been ignoring? What's blocking my breakthrough? And then, and this is the hard part, actually listen. Don't argue. Don't justify. Don't explain. Just listen. Because your breakthrough might be one act of obedience away. Your answered prayer might be on the other side of your surrender. The abundant life Jesus promised might be waiting for you to finally do the thing He's been asking you to do. Type, "I'm ready to listen," in the comments if you're done ignoring God's answers, and I'll see you tomorrow night for the final encounter. This is going to get intense, this is going to get uncomfortable, but if you're marked, if you're truly one of the ones who wants truth more than comfort, you'll be there. February 12th, 2026, 2:47 a.m. I was already at the oasis when the storm hit. I'd arrived early, around 2:15, because I couldn't wait anymore, couldn't sit in my car, couldn't pretend I wasn't terrified of what Jesus was going to show me tonight. The air had been thick and heavy all day, oppressive, like the whole desert was holding its breath. And now, as I stood at the edge of that reflecting pool, the storm that had been threatening for 2 nights finally arrived. It started with lightning, not the kind you see in the distance, the kind that's right on top of you. A bolt struck somewhere behind the oasis, so close I felt the electricity in the air, felt my hair stand on end, tasted copper on my tongue. The thunder that followed wasn't a rumble, it was a crack, like the sky itself was splitting open, and then the wind came. It hit the oasis like a physical force, bending the palm trees almost horizontal, whipping the water into whitecaps, sending sand and small stones skittering across the limestone rocks. I had to brace myself against the largest outcropping to keep from being knocked over. The temperature had dropped into the low 30s, and the wind made it feel even colder, cutting through my jacket like it wasn't even there. But I didn't leave. I couldn't leave. Because even in the chaos of the storm, even with lightning flashing every few seconds and thunder shaking the ground beneath my feet, I knew He was coming. I could feel it, that presence, that weight, that sense of something massive and holy and terrifying drawing near. Another lightning strike, this one so close it left spots in my vision, and in the afterimage burned into my retinas, I saw Him. Jesus was standing in the center of the pool, not on the water, not beside it, in it. Waist deep in the churning water, His robe soaked and clinging to Him, His hair whipping in the wind, His face turned up toward the storm-black sky, and He was weeping. Not quiet tears, gut-wrenching sobs that I could hear even over the wind and thunder. "Jesus!" I shouted, but my voice was torn away by the wind. He turned to look at me, and what I saw in His face made me fall to my knees on the wet rocks. Agony. Pure, undiluted agony, the kind of pain that comes from watching someone you love destroy themselves, the kind of grief that comes from offering you salvation and having it rejected, the kind of sorrow that comes from speaking truth that no one wants to hear. "Come into the water, Jonathan," He said, and somehow I heard Him perfectly despite the storm. His voice cut through everything else, clear and commanding and desperate. I didn't hesitate. I climbed down from the rocks and waded into the pool. The water was shockingly cold, maybe 50 degrees, and within seconds I was soaked to my chest, my clothes heavy, my boots filled with water. But I pushed forward until I was standing in front of Him, close enough to see the tears mixing with the rain on His face. "Tonight," He said, gripping my shoulders with both hands, "I'm going to show you what happens when people run out of time, when they spend their lives praying prayers while ignoring my answers, when they stand before me and realize too late that I was speaking to them all along. Lightning flashed again, and in that instant of illumination, the water around us transformed. It was no longer just water, it was a window, a portal, and I was looking through it into somewhere else. I saw a man, elderly, maybe 75, lying in a hospital bed, machines beeping, family gathered around. He was dying, and he knew it, and he was praying, desperately, frantically praying. God, please, I'm not ready. Give me more time. I have so much I still need to do, so much I need to make right. Please, just a little more time. But even as he prayed, I could see his life playing out behind him like a movie. I saw decades of God speaking to him, decades of clear direction, clear conviction, clear calls to action that he'd ignored. At 35, God had told him to reconcile with his brother. He'd refused. Later, he'd said, when I'm less angry, when he apologizes first. At 42, God had told him to leave his lucrative but unethical business practices. He'd refused. Just a few more years, he'd said. Just until I have enough saved, then I'll do the right thing. At 51, God had told him to stop neglecting his wife and children for his career. He'd refused. They understand, he'd said. I'm doing this for them. I'm providing for them. At 63, God had told him to use his wealth to help the poor, to fund ministry, to invest in eternity. He'd refused. I need security, he'd said. I need to make sure I'm taken care of in my old age. And now, at 75, he was out of time. His brother had died 5 years ago. They'd never reconciled. His wife had emotionally checked out of the marriage decades ago. His children were successful but distant, having learned from his example that career matters more than relationships. His wealth would be divided among heirs who didn't need it and didn't appreciate it. I gave him 50 years, Jesus said, his voice breaking. 50 years of speaking to him, 50 years of answering his prayers with clear direction, 50 years of opportunities to surrender, to obey, to trust me. And he spent all 50 years saying, later, and now there is no later. The vision shifted and I saw the man's funeral. Well attended, nice things said, but I could see into the hearts of the people there, and what I saw was devastating. His children felt relief more than grief, his wife felt freedom, his business partners felt opportunity, and his brother's widow felt vindicated. He died without ever making things right. This is what happens, Jesus said, when people treat their relationship with me like a negotiation instead of a surrender. When they think they can bargain with me, delay obedience, put off surrender until it's more convenient. They don't realize that every later is a no, every not yet is a rejection, every delay is a decision. Thunder crashed directly overhead, and the rain intensified, coming down so hard it was like standing under a waterfall, but I couldn't look away from the visions in the water. Now I saw a woman, middle-aged, standing in what looked like a courtroom, but it wasn't an earthly courtroom. The light was wrong, too bright, too pure, too revealing, and the judge sitting at the bench was Jesus himself, but different, not the weeping, grieving Jesus standing beside me in the water. This was Jesus in his full authority, his full power, his full righteousness. The woman was crying, but I prayed every day, I went to church, I served, I was faithful. Were you? Jesus asked from the bench, and his voice was like thunder and like silence at the same time. Show her. And suddenly her life was displayed for everyone to see. And yes, she had prayed, every day, long prayers, passionate prayers, prayers for her children, her marriage, her health, her finances. But interwoven with those prayers was a pattern of disobedience that made my stomach turn. God had told her to stop gossiping. She'd prayed for wisdom while continuing to tear others apart with her words. God had told her to forgive her mother. She'd prayed for peace while nursing decades-old bitterness. God had told her to be honest about her spending addiction. She'd prayed for financial breakthrough while hiding credit card statements from her husband. God had told her to stop the emotional affair with her coworker. She'd prayed for her marriage to improve while texting another man every night. You prayed, Jesus said from the bench, but you didn't listen. I answered every single one of your prayers. I told you exactly what to do, but you wanted me to change your circumstances without changing your heart. You wanted breakthrough without obedience. You wanted my blessings without my lordship. But I didn't know, the woman cried. I didn't understand. If you'd just been clearer. I was clear, Jesus interrupted, and now there was steel in his voice. I spoke to you through my word, through my spirit, through circumstances, through other believers, through your own conscience. I was so clear that you had to actively work to ignore me. You had to silence my voice. You had to rationalize away my conviction. You had to choose deafness. The woman collapsed, and the sound of her weeping was the most hopeless sound I'd ever heard. "This is judgment," Jesus said beside me in the water, and I realized he was weeping again too. This is what it looks like when people stand before me and realize they wasted their lives praying prayers while ignoring my answers. They thought they were faithful, they thought they were righteous, they thought they were mine, but they never surrendered, they never truly listened, they never truly obeyed. The storm was reaching its peak now. Lightning was striking every few seconds, illuminating the oasis in stark flashes of white light. The wind was howling through the palm trees like 1,000 voices screaming. The water was churning around us, and I had to hold onto Jesus' arm to keep my footing. "Show me more," I said, even though I didn't want to see more. Even though every vision was like a knife in my chest. I need to see it all. The water showed me more. Vision after vision after vision. A young man who'd prayed for years to be used by God, to have a platform, to make a difference. But God had been asking him to serve faithfully in obscurity first, to learn humility, to build character. He'd refused. He chased fame instead. And when he finally got his platform, it destroyed him. The pride he'd never dealt with consumed him. The character he'd never built crumbled under pressure, and his very public fall became a stumbling block for thousands. A mother who'd prayed desperately for her prodigal daughter to come home, but God had been asking her to acknowledge her own controlling behavior, her own manipulation, her own refusal to let her daughter make her own choices. She'd refused. She'd doubled down instead, and her daughter stayed away, not because she was running from God, but because she was running from her mother's toxic love. A pastor who'd prayed for revival in his church, but God had been asking him to repent of his pride, his authoritarianism, his abuse of power. He'd refused. He'd blamed the congregation instead. And the church split, and dozens of people walked away from faith entirely because of the wounds he'd inflicted in God's name. A businessman who'd prayed for success, for breakthrough, for open doors. But God had been asking him to prioritize his family, to be present with his wife and children, to build his home before building his empire. He'd refused. And he got everything he prayed for, success, wealth, influence, and lost everything that mattered. His wife left. His children grew up without him, and he died alone in a mansion, surrounded by everything except what he actually needed. "Stop," I finally said, because I couldn't take any more. "Please stop." The visions faded. The water was just water again, churning and cold around us. Jesus was looking at me with those eyes that saw everything, knew everything, understood everything. "Do you see now?" he asked. "Do you understand what's at stake?" "Yes," I whispered. "God, yes." "This isn't about me being harsh," he said. "This isn't about me being demanding or unreasonable or difficult. This is about me loving my children enough to tell them the truth, enough to give them clear direction, enough to show them the path to abundant life. But I can't force them to walk it. I can't make them obey. I can only speak and invite and wait." A massive lightning bolt struck one of the palm trees at the edge of the oasis. I heard the crack, saw the flash, smelled the burning wood. The tree split down the middle, one half crashing into the water, sending up a massive splash. But Jesus didn't even flinch. "Some people," he said, will hear this message and get angry. They'll say I'm being legalistic. They'll say I'm adding works to grace. They'll say I'm making salvation about performance instead of faith. But they're wrong, Jonathan. They're confusing justification with sanctification. They're confusing being saved with being surrendered. He pulled me closer, both hands on my shoulders now, his face inches from mine. "You are saved by grace through faith. Period. Nothing you do earns it. Nothing you do maintains it. Your salvation is secure in me, but your effectiveness, your fruitfulness, your intimacy with me, your answered prayers, those require obedience. Those require surrender. Those require you to actually listen when I speak and actually do what I say." Thunder rolled across the desert, and I felt it in my chest, in my bones, in my soul. The people in those visions, they were saved. They're in heaven. But they wasted their lives. They missed their purpose. They forfeited their impact. They traded abundant life for comfortable existence. And when they stood before me, they realized what they'd lost. Not their salvation, but everything else. "What about me?" I asked, and my voice was shaking. "What about my prayer, the thing I've been asking you for?" "You know the answer," he said. "I've been giving you the same answer for weeks. You just haven't wanted to hear it." He was right. I knew exactly what he was asking me to do. It was the thing I'd been avoiding, the thing I'd been rationalizing away, the thing I'd been telling myself I could deal with later. "If you do what I'm asking," Jesus said, I'll give you what you're praying for, not because you earned it, but because you'll finally be in a position to receive it without it destroying you. But if you keep refusing, if you keep ignoring me, you'll get your answer the same way these people did, too late. The storm was beginning to ease. The lightning was moving away, the thunder growing more distant. The rain was still falling, but softer now, gentler. The wind was dying down, and the water around us was growing calmer, the waves subsiding into ripples. Tomorrow, Jesus said, I'm not coming back to this oasis. This part is finished. But I'm not finished with you. I'm going to meet you in your everyday life, in your quiet times, in your decisions, in your moments of choice. And I'm going to keep asking you to do the thing I've been asking you to do. The question is, will you finally listen? He released my shoulders and stepped back, and as he did, the first rays of dawn began to break over the eastern horizon. I hadn't realized how long we'd been in the water. Hours, maybe. The storm had lasted all night. Go home, he said. Dry off. Rest. And then decide. Decide if you're going to be someone who prays prayers or someone who lives surrendered. Decide if you're going to be someone who asks for breakthrough or someone who obeys their way into it. Decide if you're going to be someone who wastes their life or someone who fulfills their purpose. The sun broke fully over the horizon, and in that moment, Jesus was gone. I was standing alone in the pool, soaked and shivering and completely transformed. I waded back to shore and collapsed on the limestone rocks, watching the sun rise over the desert. The storm had passed. The sky was clear. The oasis was peaceful again, except for the fallen palm tree, still smoking slightly where the lightning had struck it. And I made my decision. I'm not going to tell you what God has been asking me to do. That's between me and Him. But I will tell you this. I'm going to do it. Today. Not tomorrow. Not next week. Not when it's more convenient. Today. Because I saw what happens to people who say later. I saw what happens to people who pray prayers while ignoring God's answers. I saw what happens to people who run out of time, and I'm not going to be one of them. Now I need to talk to you. Directly. Honestly. With the same urgency Jesus showed me in that water. You know what God has been asking you to do. You know it. Maybe you've been ignoring it for weeks, maybe for months, maybe for years, maybe for decades. But you know. Maybe He's been asking you to forgive someone and you've been holding on to bitterness. Maybe He's been asking you to surrender your finances and you've been holding on to control. Maybe He's been asking you to end a relationship and you've been holding on to comfort. Maybe He's been asking you to start something and you've been holding on to fear. Maybe He's been asking you to confess something and you've been holding on to shame. Maybe He's been asking you to let go of something and you've been holding on to security. Whatever it is, you know, and you have a choice to make. The same choice I had to make, the same choice everyone in those visions had to make. You can keep praying your prayer while ignoring God's answer. You can keep asking for breakthrough while refusing to obey. You can keep crying out to heaven while closing your ears to what heaven is saying back. Or you can surrender. Today. Right now. This moment. You can do the thing God has been asking you to do. Even though it's hard. Even though it's scary. Even though it doesn't make sense. Even though it's going to cost you something. And when you do, when you finally obey, watch what God does. Watch how He moves. Watch how He answers the prayers you've been praying, not because you earned it, but because you're finally in a position to receive it. I'm going to share the practical steps tomorrow, the specific challenge, the exact framework for how to move forward. But tonight, I just need you to make the decision. Type, I surrender in the comments if you're ready to stop ignoring God's answers, if you're ready to stop wasting time, if you're ready to stop trading abundant life for comfortable existence. And I'll see you tomorrow for the final part, for the practical application, for the challenge that's going to change everything. But make the decision tonight, because you don't know how much time you have left. None of us do. It's been 3 days since that final night in the desert, 3 days since the storm, 3 days since I made my decision. And I'm recording this from my apartment in Los Angeles, but I need to tell you what happened when I went back to the oasis one last time. Yesterday afternoon, February 15th, around 4 p.m., I drove back out to that desert location. Not because Jesus told me to, not because I was expecting another encounter, but because I needed to see it again in the daylight. I needed to process what had happened. I needed to stand in that place where everything changed and figure out how to put it into words that would actually help you. The oasis looked completely different in the afternoon sun. The water that had glowed with supernatural light was now just a clear, spring-fed pool reflecting the blue Arizona sky. The palm trees that had thrashed in the storm were swaying gently in a warm breeze. The limestone rocks where I'd sat and wept were warm to the touch, almost hot, and the palm tree that had been split by lightning was still there, half of it lying in the shallow water, the burned wood already bleaching in the desert sun. I sat on that same outcropping where Jesus had first appeared to me 4 nights ago, and I just breathed. I let the sun warm my face. I listened to the wind in the palms. I watched a hawk circling overhead, riding the thermals, and I thought about everything he'd shown me, about prayers that aren't really unanswered, they're just conditional, about people who spend their lives asking God to move while refusing to let him move them, about the difference between praying prayers and living surrendered. And I thought about you, about the thousands of you who've been watching these videos, typing your prayer requests in the comments, crying out to God for breakthrough while maybe, just maybe, ignoring what he's already told you to do. So let me tell you what I did. Let me tell you about the decision I made. And then I'm going to give you a specific, practical challenge that will change everything if you actually do it. Remember, I told you I'd been praying for something specific for weeks, something that had driven me out into that desert in the middle of the night because God's silence was driving me crazy. I'm going to tell you what it was. I've been praying for a relationship, for a wife. I'm 51 years old. I've never been married. I don't have children. And for the first time in my life, that's been weighing on me, heavily. I've been praying, desperately praying for God to bring the right woman into my life, to open that door, to give me the family I've never had. And God's been answering me every single day. But I didn't want to hear his answer, because his answer was, let go of your career as your identity. Let go of your need for control. Let go of your fear of vulnerability. Let go of the walls you've built to protect yourself. Surrender your timeline to me. Trust me with your future instead of trying to engineer it yourself. And I'd been ignoring him because letting go of those things felt like dying. My career, the chosen, the platform, the influence, it's become who I am, not just what I do, who I am. And God was asking me to hold it loosely, to be willing to walk away if he asked, to stop finding my worth in it. The control, I've spent my entire adult life carefully managing my image, my relationships, my opportunities, and God was asking me to stop, to be messy, to be real, to let people see the broken parts, the walls. I've been hurt before, we all have, and I've protected myself by keeping people at arm's length, and God was asking me to risk again, to be vulnerable again, to open myself up to the possibility of pain again. So sitting there in that oasis yesterday afternoon, with the sun warm on my face and the memory of Jesus' words still echoing in my mind, I did it. I surrendered. All of it. I got on my knees on those warm limestone rocks and I prayed a different prayer. Not God, give me a wife, but God, I give you my career. I give you my need for control. I give you my walls. I give you my timeline. I give you my future. Do whatever you want with me. I'm yours. Completely. Finally. Truly. And you know what happened? Nothing dramatic, no lightning, no visions, no audible voice, just peace, deep, settling, unshakable peace, the kind of peace that comes from finally stopping the fight, from finally letting go, from finally surrendering. I don't know if God's going to bring me a wife now. I don't know when, I don't know how, but I know this. I'm finally in a position to receive what he has for me because I'm not blocking my own breakthrough anymore. And that's what I need you to understand. That's the message Jesus gave me in that desert to give to you. Your breakthrough is not being blocked by God's unwillingness to move. It's being blocked by your unwillingness to surrender. Your prayers are not going unanswered because God doesn't hear you. They're going unanswered because you're not hearing him. Your life is not stuck because God is distant. It's stuck because you're disobedient. And I know that sounds harsh. I know some of you are already getting defensive, already formulating arguments in your mind about grace and legalism and works. But hear me, this isn't about earning God's love. You can't. This isn't about performing for God's acceptance. You have it. This isn't about works-based salvation. You're saved by grace through faith, period. This is about effectiveness. This is about fruitfulness. This is about intimacy. This is about living the abundant life Jesus promised instead of settling for comfortable existence. So here's the challenge. Here's the practical, specific, do-it-today framework that's going to change everything. The 30-minute daily surrender challenge for the next 30 days, from today, right now, until March 17th, 2026. I want you to spend 30 minutes every single day doing this exact process, not 20 minutes, not when you have time, 30 minutes every day, no exceptions. Step 1. Get alone, 5 minutes. Find a place where you can be completely alone, not just physically alone, actually alone. No phone, no distractions, no music, no nothing, just you and God. If you have to lock yourself in a bathroom, do it. If you have to sit in your car in a parking lot, do it. If you have to wake up before everyone else or stay up after everyone's asleep, do it. Sit in silence for 5 full minutes. Don't pray yet, don't talk yet, just sit. Let the noise in your head settle. Let your heart rate slow down. Let yourself become present. This is harder than it sounds. Your mind will race. You'll think of 1,000 things you need to do. Sit anyway. Be still. Step 2. Ask the question, 5 minutes. After 5 minutes of silence, ask God this specific question out loud. What have you been asking me to do that I've been ignoring? Then be quiet again. Listen. And I mean really listen. Not for an audible voice, though if you hear one, praise God. But listen for that still small voice in your spirit, that conviction, that knowing, that thing that immediately comes to mind that you immediately want to dismiss. Don't dismiss it. Write it down, even if it doesn't make sense, even if it seems too hard, even if it scares you, even if it's going to cost you something. Write it down. For some of you, it's going to be about forgiveness. God's going to bring someone to mind, someone who hurt you, someone you've been holding bitterness toward, and He's going to ask you to forgive them, not feel like forgiving them, not wait until they apologize. Forgive them, release them, let it go. For some of you, it's going to be about confession. God's going to bring to light something you've been hiding, an addiction, a sin pattern, a secret, and He's going to ask you to bring it into the light, to tell someone, to get help, to stop living in the darkness. For some of you, it's going to be about surrender. God's going to ask you to let go of something you've been clutching, a relationship, a career path, a dream, money, control, and trust Him with it. For some of you, it's going to be about obedience. God's going to remind you of something He's already told you to do. Start something, stop something, say something, go somewhere, and He's going to ask you to finally do it. Whatever it is, write it down. Be specific. Don't be vague. Don't spiritualize it. Write down the actual concrete thing God is asking you to do. Step 3, face the fear. 10 minutes. This is the part most people skip, and it's why they never actually obey. You need to face why you've been ignoring what God's been asking you to do. Write down your fears, your objections, your reasons, your excuses, all of them. Get them out of your head and onto paper where you can actually see them. If I forgive them, they'll think what they did was okay. If I confess this, people will judge me. If I surrender this, I'll lose my security. If I obey this, it's going to cost me everything. Write them all down, every single one. And then, this is crucial, take each fear and ask God, is this fear bigger than you? Is this cost more than you can handle? Is this risk more than you can redeem? The answer is always no. Always. But you need to see it. You need to confront the lies you've been believing that have kept you in disobedience. Step 4. Make the commitment. 5 minutes. Now write out a specific dated commitment. Not, I'm going to try to forgive them. Not, I'll work on surrendering this. A specific commitment with a specific timeline. By specific date, I will specific action. By February 20th, I will call my brother and tell him I forgive him. By February 25th, I will confess my pornography addiction to my accountability partner. By March 1st, I will surrender my business to God and stop making decisions based on fear. Whatever God has asked you to do, commit to a specific action by a specific date, and then sign it. Literally sign your name. Make it real. Make it binding. Step 5. Pray the surrender. 5 minutes. End your 30 minutes by praying this prayer out loud. And I mean out loud, not in your head. Out loud. There's power in speaking it. God, I surrender. I surrender my will to yours. I surrender my timeline to yours. I surrender my understanding to yours. I surrender my fear to your faithfulness. I surrender my control to your sovereignty. I commit to doing what you've asked me to do, not because I understand it, not because it makes sense, not because it's comfortable, but because you asked, and I trust that when I obey, you'll do what only you can do. I'm not praying for you to change my circumstances anymore. I'm asking you to change me, make me obedient, make me surrendered, make me yours. In Jesus' name, amen. That's it, 30 minutes, every day for 30 days. And here's what's going to happen. Some of you are going to do this for 3 days and quit. The enemy is going to throw everything at you to keep you from continuing. You're going to get busy. You're going to forget. You're going to convince yourself it's not working. Don't quit. Some of you are going to do this for a week and see nothing change. Your circumstances will look exactly the same. You'll be tempted to think God isn't listening. Keep going. Breakthrough doesn't always happen on your timeline. Some of you are going to do this for 2 weeks and it's going to get harder before it gets easier. The thing God's asking you to do is going to feel more impossible, not less. That's when you're closest to breakthrough. Don't stop. But some of you are going to do this for 30 days, and your life is going to be completely different on March 17th than it is today. Not because you earned it, not because you performed well enough, but because you finally got out of your own way. You finally stopped blocking your own breakthrough. You finally started listening to what God has been saying all along, and the prayers you've been praying for healing, for provision, for reconciliation, for breakthrough, for purpose, for direction. God's going to start answering them, not all at once, not always in the way you expected, but He'll answer, because you'll finally be in a position to receive what He's been trying to give you all along. Now let me tell you what's at stake if you don't do this. Remember those visions Jesus showed me, those people who spent their lives praying prayers while ignoring God's answers? That could be you. That could be your story. You could spend the next year, the next 5 years, the next 20 years crying out to God for breakthrough while refusing to do the one thing He's asking you to do. And you'll stand before Him one day and realize you wasted your life. Not your salvation, that's secure, but your purpose, your impact, your intimacy with Him, your abundant life. Is that really what you want? Is that really the story you want to tell? Or do you want to be someone who finally listened, someone who finally surrendered, someone who finally stopped praying prayers and started living obedient? I'm telling you, I'm begging you, don't waste another day, don't waste another week, don't waste another year. You don't know how much time you have. None of us do. And every day you delay obedience is a day you're choosing comfortable existence over abundant life. Here's what I need you to do right now. First, type in the comments, I commit to the 30-day surrender challenge. Make it public, make it real. Let this community hold you accountable. Second, set an alarm on your phone for the same time every day for the next 30 days. Label it surrender time. And when that alarm goes off, drop everything and do the 30-minute process. No excuses, no exceptions. Third, come back to this video every single day and report in the comments. Tell us what God is showing you. Tell us what He's asking you to do. Tell us how you're doing. Let us pray for you. Let us encourage you. Let us walk this journey with you. Fourth, subscribe to this channel if you haven't already, and turn on notifications. I'm going to be posting updates throughout these 30 days. I'm going to be sharing my own journey of surrender. I'm going to be praying for you, and I'm going to be holding you accountable. And finally, I need you to share this video. I know, everyone asks you to share. But listen, there's someone in your life right now who needs to hear this message. Someone who's been praying prayers while ignoring God's answers. Someone who's stuck and doesn't know why. Someone who's about to give up on God because they think He's not listening. Share this with them. Send them the link. Tag them in the comments. Don't let them miss this, because here's the truth. Not everyone who sees this message is meant to see it. Remember I said that at the beginning? Some people will scroll past. Some people will ignore it. Some people will watch it and do nothing. But you've been marked. You've made it all the way to the end of this 4-part series. You've invested hours of your life listening to what God showed me in that desert. That's not an accident. That's not random. You're here because God has something for you. A breakthrough, a purpose, an abundant life. And the only thing standing between you and that breakthrough is your willingness to surrender. So what's it going to be? Are you going to keep praying the same prayers while ignoring God's answers? Or are you going to finally surrender? Are you going to keep asking God to move while refusing to let Him move you? Or are you going to finally obey? Are you going to keep settling for comfortable existence? Or are you going to finally step into abundant life? The choice is yours. It's always been yours. God won't force you. He'll just keep speaking, keep inviting, keep waiting. But He won't wait forever. None of us have forever. I'm going back to that oasis in 30 days. March 17th, 2026, and I'm going to record a follow-up video sharing what happened during these 30 days of surrender, what God did, how He moved, what changed, and I'm going to read some of your testimonies, some of your stories, some of your breakthroughs. Will yours be one of them? I'm praying it will be. I'm praying that 30 days from now, you'll be commenting with a testimony that will encourage thousands of others. That you'll be sharing how God answered the prayer you've been praying for years because you finally did what He asked you to do. But it starts today, right now, this moment. Close this video, get alone with God, Ask him what he's been asking you to do, and then do it. Stop ignoring his answers. Stop blocking your own breakthrough. Stop wasting your life. Surrender, and watch what God does. I'll see you in 30 days, and I'll be praying for you every single day until then. God bless you, God keep you, and God give you the courage to finally listen